Well, welcome back to the abandoned hotel in Montenegro, everybody. I've got my trusted notepad with me. If you see my other videos, you guys will know that I like working with pen and paper, old school method. Right, today, jumping straight into it. I'm hoping that this is going to help a lot of people because on this notepad, I have wrote down every job or business that I have ever actively pursued. And by actively pursued, I have taken action with. So I haven't just thought of an idea, I have actually taken action and tried to make something happen. Now, what I'm going to do in today's video is talk about the jobs that I quit along the way, because in this, there are businesses, there are jobs. I'll obviously talk about businesses and certain successes and failures that I've had along the way in life. I'm 35 years old, I've done a lot of things and I've learned a lot along the way. And one thing that I have learned is how I don't want to be, who I don't want to work with, what I'm willing to accept, what I'm not willing to accept. The reason that I think that this will help a lot of people, I believe a lot of people are also in a similar position where ultimately they are not happy with their job. Whether that's for the people that they work with, the pay, the conditions, whatever it is, I think a lot of people would be happier in different positions. And I think a lot of people actually get stuck along the way, because I was stuck quite a few times. I thought that there was no way out, but I promise you that there is. And hopefully by me sharing these stories with you today, that you will see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is other things that you can do with your life. You're never stuck. There's always things that you can do to change your situation. There are 5 jobs that I have quit. Now, when I say quit, I do believe there's a difference. I think that there's 3 ways, really, well, probably 4 ways that you can leave work. You can quit your job, you can choose to leave yourself, you can get the sack, fired, or you can be made redundant. Now, the difference between leaving your job and quitting your job, here's what I believe the difference is, because I've left many jobs as well. And I've quit 5 jobs, as I've said. The difference between quitting your job and leaving your job, when you quit your job, you are choosing to quit because you're not happy with something. So whether that's the pay, the people that you work with, your manager's a dickhead, or whatever it is, you're choosing to quit. When you leave your job, I believe that basically it's time to move on, it's time to upgrade your life, it's time to do something else, which I've also done many times. What I'm going to do in this video is talk about the jobs that I have quit, because these are the situations where I wasn't happy with where I was, and whether it was the people, the situation, all the rest of it. Now, jumping straight into it, I'm going to start from the early days of the first job that I quit. What I will say that it is job number 3 that was the most difficult for me, that I will share with you. And this was the hardest time in my life, and I think this is the one that hopefully that story helps the most people, because that was a very difficult situation to be in, and I want to share that with you to show you that you can move on from these times. You're never stuck. Jumping straight into it, number 1, chicken farm. Now, I worked on a chicken farm when I was 16 years old, and I worked on this chicken farm for just 1 day. Now, what happened? I got picked up in a van. I lived in Bingham, in Nottingham. I got picked up in a van. I got taken to this chicken farm. I had no idea what chicken farms were, how they operated or anything like this. And basically my job was to go along, and there was, like, you can think of it as basically aircraft hangars, and these were full of chickens. So this is lesson number 1. You don't realise the conditions of some of the animals are kept, of where your food is actually coming from. Now, this was an air hangar, and it was basically full of chickens. And I'm talking there was 3 to 4 rows of chickens, and this thing was probably about, 50 meters long. And there were rows and rows of these chickens. And basically my job was to go along and collect the eggs. And let me tell you this, the chickens, all that they could do was stick their head out of this metal fence, and literally all they could do all their life was move their head to peck and eat seed and lay eggs, and that's all they did. Now bear in mind, these were the eggs that the people there would come round Bingham, come round the houses and knock on the door and sell these as fresh eggs from the farm. And my mum was buying these eggs until she realised my experience, because the condition of these chickens was absolutely disgusting. They couldn't move, they're crammed up next to each other, most of them didn't have feathers, they hadn't had wings that had developed, they were completely malnourished, there was literally dead chickens, and the other chickens were stood on top of the other dead chickens so they could peck further and eat more food, and that's how they lived their life. So that was a horrible experience. I did try and help a chicken escape. I was basically walking down the aisle and then I saw this chicken running round free, and I basically had a trolley with eggs. So what I thought is, you know, kind of Chicken Run style, if you guys have seen Chicken Run the movie, I picked up this chicken, I put it under my trolley, and I was wheeling it towards the exit, and I thought, well, the least I can do, at least let one of these little legends live a free life. And then as I got to the door swings open. Who is it? It's Trunchbull, the woman who owns the place. And obviously then the chicken darted off to the left, so unfortunately I couldn't help that little fella escape. But the biggest lesson for that, because there's going to be a lesson in everything that I share with you today, that's just why I want to do this. If you're not happy with the conditions that you're working, or it doesn't sit right with your morals, then move on. You don't have to stay there just for the sake of money. And also, just be nice to animals. The way that they treated these animals is absolutely disgusting, and it doesn't have to be the case. So also, check where your food comes from, because you never know, you might be sold fresh eggs from the farm when really these are just battery chickens crammed in, no feathers, hardly any wings, stood on top of other dead chickens to lay you an egg so you can have it on your toast. So be careful with that one. So that's one lesson that taught me. Never accept anything that goes against your morals. And just be kind to animals, be nice to animals. And also, I'll tell you another thing, guess what? Because I was 16 years old, there's no rules on how much they can pay you or not pay you. There's no minimum wage or anything like this. So do you know what? After a shift of 5 to 5.5 hours, I got paid, it was about £11.30. It worked out to be £2 something per hour. So they were taking advantage of young people as well, just like they were taking advantage of animals. So a disgusting place to work. And hopefully that brings some light onto the situation. You guys can learn something from that. Now, moving on to the next job that I had. This is going to be a quick one. It was in a photography shop. I can't remember the name of it, Kodak or something like this. I don't know which one it was, to be honest with you. And again, this was in Bingham. And basically, I was there for a few weekends. And the reason that it was only a few weekends, not because of the pay or anything like this, was because of the person that I worked with. This girl basically just spoke to me like I was a piece of shit and made me feel horrible for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I couldn't really understand it, but some people, you know, they're the manager of a photography shop. Wow, great. And they feel like they can control other people and just, bring other people down. And she just spoke to me like I was completely worthless. And basically after about 3 to 4 weekends of working there, you know, I got pissed off. And I was walking out the door. I was about to, supposed to be coming back the next day. And it got to me the way that she was speaking to me. And she said, I'll see you tomorrow. And I said, you flipping won't see me tomorrow. And she's like, why? I said, because you need to learn not to speak to people like they're a piece of shit. And then I just slammed the door, I walked out and never went back. So that's one other lesson there. You don't have to accept being spoken to like a piece of shit. Treat people nicely. We're all human at the end of the day. We all have feelings. This position that you think that you're in of a manager of a photography shop, it thinks it gives you some power. You've got no power whatsoever. So speak to people nicely, because we're all human at the end of the day. We've all got feelings. Now, the most difficult job that I ever worked in. This is because those other two jobs was pretty much just when I was in school or just leaving school. This is when I left school. I left school when I was 16 years old. I didn't go to college, I didn't go to university. I went straight into being an apprentice. And that apprenticeship was in air conditioning. And basically you've got a work experience. Some of you guys will know, when you're at school, you turn up to a place of work. I chose to turn up to a place called Hilton's Building Services. And I was there for a week whilst I was doing my work experience, because I wanted to be a plumber basically when I left school. I wanted to own my own business, do my own thing. My uncle was a painter and decorator. It's the only thing really that I didn't, I thought I could work for myself. They didn't really teach you entrepreneurship, business or anything like this at school. So I just thought, well, what's the one thing that I can do and be self-employed and be my own boss? So I took the easy route and thought, okay, well, this is simple, I'll just be a plumber. So I did work experience there for a week and it was great. And then I ended up leaving school when I was 16. I applied for a job, I got the job. There was no positions within the plumbing field. So they basically said, yes, you can come in, but you can be an air conditioning engineer. Again, I just thought, well, it doesn't matter to me what I do. I'll be self-employed eventually. I'll just learn this skill set and then I'll move on from the work and do it for myself. Now, I joined the air conditioning team at Hilton's Building Services. And this was the worst year of my entire life. I've lived obviously another 19 years since. I've never worked at a place with such animals, and basically they abused me, hit me, mentally abused me. It was genuinely horrific. I was 16 years old. I was one of these people that was late developing. I didn't even have hairs on my legs till I was like 16, 17 years old. I had a high-pitched voice. I was still a little boy. I was a tiny little thing, small frame and all the rest of it, I didn't grow until I was literally 19, 20, 21 years old. And basically, I was thrown in with a pack of dogs. It's like feeding a chicken to a bunch of lions. That's how it was. And these were the typical meatheads from school, your school bullies. But obviously they're older now. They ranged between 25 and 40 years old. The worst one, Mick was his name, was 40 years old. And yeah, they were absolutely savage with me. And the reason that I'm sharing this with you guys is because hopefully it brings some light onto the situation, because they would mentally abuse me and physically abuse me. And they would tell me that everyone goes through this. And you hear this a lot in the building trade, in the apprenticeships, whatever, that it's normal for apprenticeships to be very difficult, for you to get a beating every now and then, to be mentally abused and stuff like this. This is all a load of nonsense. And basically they would come up to me, I'd be their punching bag sometimes, boom, 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 start whacking me, full pelt. One time I cut a piece of metal rod. It was supposed to be 30 centimeters or something like this, it was 31. And Mick came up to me and said, I told you that's 31. I think he was actually wrong, to be honest with you, but whatever, it doesn't make a difference. We all make mistakes. And then he basically grabbed me in a headlock. We're on a building site, much like the concrete floor that I'm sat on right now. He grabs me in a headlock. Bear in mind, I'm 16 years old. I've still got braces. He swings me round and slams me full pelt on the floor and just leaves me on the floor. This was just one of many things. There was another time that he actually grabbed me when we were on the top of one of these buildings. He pinned me down and he pretended to fuck me from behind. So he's obviously got some mental issues, especially if you're doing that to a little boy. And also there was a time that when I worked, you knew that it was going to be a disastrous situation when you're with a big group of them, because sometimes you can work with them one-on-one and it was still shit. But if you're working with them as a group, you know that it's going to be royally shit. At the end of the day, you'd rather try and fight one lion than six. Another situation, there's big gas bottles, heavy gas bottles. Even they struggle to lift these things. Bear in mind, like I said, I've got a small frame. I'm 16 years old at the time. And they said to me, right, you're carrying this bottle down these stairs. And it was like 3 flights of stairs on this building site. And I said, there's no chance, I literally can't even lift it, let alone carry it. You know what they did? 2 of them grabbed me, they held me there, while 2 of them lifted this gas bottle up and they forced it on my shoulder and they forced me to walk down these stairs. Literally, my skinny legs were moving down these stairs, nearly buckling, literally like Bambi's legs, sticking a gas tank on the top of Bambi as I'm walking down these stairs. My legs are literally nearly snapping, but they forced me to do it. So that's just a few of the stories. I won't go into all of them, but the reason that I wanted to share that with you is because you can see the reality of some of the situations that you actually work in with people. And I also really want to let people know that if they ever go through a situation like this, or you ever work with people like this, that basically you don't have to accept it, because they were telling me that this is what you go through. And obviously this is the first real job that I had when I left school. So imagine this, at 16 years old, going into the working world, full-time employment, and I experienced this. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is just how it is. And they're telling me this is how it is. Well, everyone went through this. This is what you've got to go through. So I start telling myself this, and I start thinking, man, maybe this is normal and this is what everyone else goes through. So you just accept it. And basically I accepted this for an entire year of getting abused like this every single day, until eventually one day I walked on, because you had to turn up to an office, and then they'd basically tell you who you're going to be working with. And like I said, if it's one of them, you know it's going to be a shit day. If there's loads of them, you know it's going to be a royally shit day. I go into the office and the boss says, so today, Simon, you're going to be working with Mick, Mark, Anthony. Boom, starts listing off all of these people. And I thought, oh, here we go. This is going to be a fucking disaster of a day, this. So I go around the corner. Anyway, they're all there. They're waiting on the corner because there was like a building yard that they'd all meet at. And you know what? I walk up and guess what? They're all laughing their head off. These are like pub fighters. Some of them come in from bad backs where they've been whacked over their back with stools and stupid stuff like this, where they've been fighting in a pub the day before. And they say, I hear them talking, and do you know what they're talking about? They're laughing amongst themselves about making the apprentice that they worked with the day before cry. And they're all bigging each other up because it makes them feel like big men that they're making little boys cry. And I walked up and I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, oh, I feel sick, I can't handle this anymore. And I remember they're speaking and then my ears kind of just started to ring and I couldn't really hear much more. And then something just clicked in my head and I was like, fuck this, I'm quitting. And I just turned and just started walking away. And then I could hear in the background, like, Simon, Simon, shouting. And I couldn't even speak, I just ignored them, kept walking. And then I walked around the corner, I go up to the bus stop. Fortunately, there was a bus that was coming at the time, and I jump on the bus. And do you know what I did? As I'm coming down, I see them walking around the corner, so I'm at the back of the bus, and do you know what I did? I lay down at the back of the bus so they couldn't see me. And that's it. That's how I quit that job. So yeah, that's a very difficult past for me. I was young when that happened. It's disgusting what happened. And the biggest lessons from that I want to share with you, I promise you, if you ever go through difficult situations or you're working with people like this, people that mistreat you, people that don't speak to you nicely, because I promise you that was nothing compared to the photography shop that I worked in. But either way, regardless, if you work with a bunch of dickheads, if you work with people that treat you horrendously or just are not nice to you, mentally abuse you, take advantage of their power, their size, whatever it is, just quit. Because they told me everyone goes through this. I started convincing myself that that was the situation. I thought that there's nothing else that I can do anyway. You know, I'm a plumber, I'm a year deep into this is what I want to do, blah, blah, blah. You know, and then I realised now, I've obviously done many things since. I've had successful businesses, I've had successful role in other investment jobs and stuff like this, and I've done well along the way. And I thought at the time, man, this is the only thing that I can do because it's the only thing that I know. But I promise you, you can leave. If you experience this, just quit. Learn something else, move on to something else. Because there's bigger, better, brighter things for you out there, and you're worth a lot more in life than these people. So hopefully that helps. A difficult story for me, but again, this channel's all about being real, being honest, and just saying things as it is without the nonsense. So there you go, you get the true reality of life sometimes. Now moving on to the next job, that was with the air conditioning. It was actually, I basically, what happened, the way that I left that, I obviously left on the bus. I then complained to the management, the directors, the rest of it. I had to come in with my dad because obviously I'm still classed as a minor at that time. They basically denied it all, of course, because why would they say anything else? And the work, kindly, they offered to move me over to the plumbing side because that was air conditioning. So I kind of got what I wanted anyway, just not the way that I wanted to obviously get there. And this is a shorter story, I moved over to the plumbing side. They were decent people that I worked with, obviously the same people that I had work experience with, it was all good. But basically the reason that I wanted to share this story with you, because this taught me what I actually didn't want to do. I was working on building sites, shit conditions, big pipe, still not the nicest people just in general to be surrounded by, and just not nice conditions. And then I thought, man, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? Do I want to be working on building sites, turning up with hard hats and high visors and getting dirty and messy and all this kind of stuff and getting up early and all this? And I thought, you know what, no, I don't want to be doing this at all. And also what happens, after about another year and a half, because I did air conditioning for a year, like I said, then quit, and then I did plumbing for a year and a half. Basically, I was on a big building site. I'd not seen these guys that had been savage to me when I was doing air conditioning the whole time. But you do bump into people in the trade sometimes. And then what happened, I was working on this big building site as a plumber, and it turns out, guess what? These dogs turned up on the site as well. And basically I decided, you know what, fuck this, I'm leaving. And I nearly had an altercation with one of them because I'd grown up a little bit more, and they found out that I was leaving, I was going to move on to do something else. And basically on my day off, they got putty, which is like sticky stuff for people that don't know, and they put that all over my tools and they ruined all of my tools. But to be honest with you, I didn't give a fuck anyway, because I decided, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't care about anything like this. I don't even want to hold this spanner or anything anymore. I want nothing to do with any of this. I want to leave this behind. So one of my friends rang me up. He told me that they'd done this with my tools, and I said, you know what, dude, if you want to clean them, you can keep all of my tools, because I don't care. I'm quitting and I'm leaving this anyway. I handed in my notice. You're obviously supposed to work a week's notice. I went onto the building site that morning. It was 10 a.m. It was a nice warm sunny day in the UK, which is extremely rare. And basically they had a fence around the building site. You're kind of caged in like those battery chickens were. And I could see people walking past. And you know, it was strange because they were smiling. And I was like, wow, can you imagine being on a Monday and actually having a smile on your face at this time in the morning? I looked up, the sun was shining. I could see these people smiling outside of this fence. And I thought, you know what? Fuck this. I'm out of here. So I just walked out the windy shutters, whatever it is, turned off my phone, see you later. And I never spoke to any of them ever again. So that was my experience in the building game. I met some sound people, but the people in that I worked with were a bunch of savages. So hopefully this story has helped people. One, don't accept being treated like this. And two, if you feel like, actually, you know what, I want to change direction, or this isn't right for me, that's fine. Don't get lost in that, spending years of your life going in the wrong direction. So hopefully that helps people. Now, the last one that I will share with you guys about a place that I quit was when I went into leasing cars. I've done car sales at Volkswagen, Mercedes and stuff like this. That was really good. And I've done many other jobs, to be honest with you, in sales and various different roles. I'll not share that in this job because obviously there's lessons in those. But the reason that I wanted to share this one with you, with leasing cars, and why I quit this job, was because I joined this company in June. This was 5 years ago, something like this now, and maybe even longer. I joined this company in the summer, and basically they had a certain pay structure, and then it comes down to 6 months, it comes to January, and then all of a sudden you find out that they're changing the pay structure, and you've got something called KPIs in sales, which is key performance indicator. They're basically, you can look at it like hurdles that you have to overcome. They're targets that you have to reach. So whether it's like you have to sell 20 cars this month, you have to also sell X amount of products, X amount of people have to take finance. These are KPIs. And basically when I joined, there were 4 KPIs. And on this new pay structure, it turns out they're now introduced that there's 10 KPIs. The way that you can look at this, these are hurdles. And if a horse runs a race and there are 4 hurdles that horse has to jump over to complete a lap, it's much more likely to complete that lap than if you stuck 10 hurdles for it to jump over. And the reason that this winds me up is because there was a manager there at the time called Sam, and he tried to sell this to people that, oh no, well, the pay structure hasn't changed. You still get the same percentage commission, which I think was about 50% of the profit. So nothing's really changed. It's just how you get there that's changed. Well, if how you get there has changed, then everything has changed. So that wound me up. And the reason that I'm sharing this with you is because I went into the office. Sam was the sales director at the time. And I went in and I shared this with him because when we found out this news, although we were sold this, some people kind of just accept it, and you know, when they pull the wool over people's eyes, they don't really know any differently. They don't look into it because they trust these people, and they just think, oh well, yeah, it's still 50%, so we'll keep it simple, it's still 50%. But I looked into this further and I saw the reality of the situation. I basically did the calculations on my wage based on what I'd sold in the previous 6 months, and it meant that I was going to take about a 40% cut in my earnings. So then I started sharing this with the people in the office because I thought, one, I don't give a flying fuck. If you're going to treat us like this, then watch how I share this with other people. So I started sharing this with other people. A lot of people had obviously been there for a long time. This was a big company. And then there were people who had mortgages, and they had taken these mortgages out based on the earnings that they were making, and they were crying at their desk because they were doing the calculations, then thinking, I can't even afford my mortgage. And they've obviously got families and stuff like this. Fortunately, I didn't have a family, I didn't have a mortgage and the rest of this. So I shared this with Sam. I said, do you realise that there's people literally crying at their desk right now because they can't afford the mortgage based on this due payment structure? And do you know what he said to me? He put it back on me and said, it's me that just needs to improve. So that wound me up. So then I thought, I sat at my desk for a little bit longer, and I'm the kind of person that if something gets in my head and it starts winding me up, I cannot let it go, and I'm not going to accept this bullshit from Sam, just saying this. I could still see people crying at their desks and stuff like this. I'm waiting in the morning and stuff. I'm trying to do my work. I can't even concentrate. I thought, bollocks to this. So I said, right, I'm going to go in and see the directors. And you know, this is where people are like, whoa, this is crazy. Someone's actually going to go speak to the directors. And this is another just crazy thing. Man, don't be afraid of these people. They're just people at the end of the day. They're people who've just started a company. They started in a job or whatever it is, and they've worked their way up, and at the end of the day, this is just another person. So don't be afraid to speak to the directors. Go as high as you possibly can and share your true thoughts, especially if it's not right. So I went into the directors. I said the same thing. I said, do you realise there's people crying at the desk? Do you realise what's happening? I said, I've spoke to your sales director, and he's just basically brushed me off and said it's me. I said, I've done my calculations, all the rest of it. And I basically said, thanks very much, but I'm leaving. And I'm leaving right now because I knew that they weren't going to change it. And I know at the end of the day, look, I'm not blaming the business. I do think that there's better ways that they could do it. They don't have to just drop things on people like this. But I understand business is business at the end of the day, and if you don't have profit, you don't have a business. So I'm not blaming the moves that they made. I'm saying it's not really right how they did it. They could have given people a lot of time, or at least, you know, given the people the time and space that they needed. Then people can start making moves rather than waiting until January and saying, bam, surprise, next week, guess what? There's a new payment structure. Good luck affording your mortgage. So yeah, that's it. I left that job. And do you know what I did? I went back to my desk, and this is the only job that I did this in, proper old school style. I literally collected all of my stuff off the desk. I put it in a box. And what you'd find in this job, it was strange. Because, and I don't know, I'd be interested if other people have had office jobs and they've experienced this kind of thing. I've actually had a few, and this seems to happen. These people vanish. And basically, when people leave a job, all that had happened at this leasing company, someone would disappear. You would not know why. You'd never hear anything from them ever again. And then an email would come round and be like, Tom has left the company. And it's like, what? Tom, I knew Tom. Tom was my friend, and then all of a sudden, poof, there's a puff of smoke at Tom's desk, You look, and there's no Tom anymore. And you're like, well, that's well strange. I wonder what's happened to Tom then. And I thought, you know what, bollocks, that's not happening to me. Because I know these people. I left, other companies and stuff to join this company with a lot of these people. So a lot of these people are my friends. So I went round with my box, and I went round and I shook the hands of everyone, and I told them all why I was leaving. And I know that the upper management and stuff like this, they hated me for doing that, but they couldn't stop me. And I went round, said to everyone, by the way, yep, just to let you know, I'm bouncing. This is the reality of the situation. Pay structure's changed. I've had a look. I'm not getting paid as much. And then I went round and shared the message with everyone. So there's the final lesson. Don't be afraid to talk the truth. Don't be afraid to say what you're truly thinking, especially if it's not right about how you're being treated and about the situation at hand. And also, if things do change within the structure of a company, hey, things have changed in time and it's not what it was when you joined that company, don't be afraid to take action and to move on. And again, one last time, because I think that this is the biggest reason why people still stay stuck in this position, because they think, and I know this because I've spoken to a lot of my friends, and they're like, well, how have you done that? And how have you done this? And, but this is the only thing that I know. It's the only thing that I've ever done. And people end up, selling cars for 10 years, or they just end up in this office job as admin for 10 years, 15 years, or doing whatever it is for a ridiculous long period of time, because they think that because that's the only thing they know at the time, that's the only thing that they're capable of doing. And what I would say to you guys, you're right, it is the only thing that you know at this time, but the moment that you leave is the moment that you can start learning something new, and then you can become something different. And that's exactly what's happened to me. And that's why I've done air conditioning, I've done plumbing, I've worked at Mercedes, Volkswagen, I've done property investment, I've done car leasing, I've worked in bars, I've done so many things, I've done businesses, and that's because I'm not afraid to leave and move on, and I'm also not afraid to learn new things. So there we go, there's the 5 jobs that I've quit. I'll share with you guys the businesses and stuff like this that I have stopped and quit along the way, and what I've learned and why I've left them, but not on this video, because I think a lot more people need to hear ultimately about the job industry, the reality of the situation, and hopefully this helps people realize, wow, actually, you know what? I can learn something new. I can move on from difficult situations, and also respect yourself, respect others, treat people with kindness. So hopefully this has helped people, and I will be sharing more videos. And yeah, be good to people, it will come back and it will pay you dividends in the future. Love and light, people. I'll see you on the next video.